to Vladimir Putin's announcement that Russia will invade Ukraine. In fact, Reuters and Al Jazeera both reported a couple of hours ago seeing the first Russian military convoys already entering Donetsk, a part of Ukraine occupied by pro-Russian militias. It's on. And I tell you, the bad guys are winning. Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, they're winning. Because the West is so damn weak, it would make you sick. And because the West doesn't seem to understand just how evil leaders work and what it takes to beat them. But I'm going to give you a little insight, two insights in particular, two videos showing, one, Putin's strength, and two, the West's suicidal weakness. Now, President Putin yesterday said Russia was going to send soldiers into eastern Ukraine to two areas of the country, like Donetsk, that have already been seized by pro-Russian forces a few years ago, including by the killers who shot down MH17. They killed so many Australians. Now, we already know that Vladimir Putin himself is a killer. I mean, he's murdered a number of his critics, even in England, and is also a liar. He said overnight that Ukraine was never a real country. It was the Russians who created. In fact, Lenin's Bolsheviks created Ukraine, to be precise. And Putin said he's now going to legally recognise those two stolen enclaves as countries. But in fact, he wants to take all of Ukraine.
I would like to reiterate that Ukraine to us is not just a neighbouring country. It is part and parcel of our history, culture, our soul. I consider it necessary to take a long overdue decision to immediately recognise the independence and sovereignty of Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic.
Okay, now to video exhibit 1. Video to show you what kind of man the West is dealing with here. Putin is virtually a dictator now. He called in his National Security Council on the weekend to give him advice on whether to do what he's just done, to recognise these two stolen areas. You know, like he was making up his mind, going through the proper process, and he happily showed this complete farce on TV. And here's what I'm going to show you. Putin gets one of those advisors to say what he thinks should be done, tells the man is wrong, should think again, coaches him to give the answer that Putin actually wants, and then makes the scared man sit down. Now listen to this exchange. It's a little hard to follow, I know, because the same interpreter does both men's voices. But I tell you, it's a wonderful insight into how a dictator works.
And to implement the Minsk agreements, otherwise we have to make the decision we are discussing today. What do you mean otherwise? You want us to start the negotiations? Or you want us to recognize the sovereignty? Just say it directly. I would support the suggestion about recognition. I will support, or I am supporting. I am supporting. So yes or no, just say it. Yes, I am supporting the suggestion about making Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics, to make them part of the Russian Federation. That's not what we are talking about. That's not what we are discussing. We are talking about recognizing them as independent entities. Yes or no? Yes, I support the suggestion about recognizing their independence. Thank you. You can take your seat.
Watching Putin smile as he bullies his minion, plays with him like a cat plays with a mouse. Do you really think this is a man who cares about appeals by foreign leaders to international law, to Putin's sense of fairness, to his good nature? I mean, give me a break. And do you think this man would have been impressed, scared even, when US President Joe Biden on the weekend sent his Vice President, Kamala Harris, to a Munich Security Council to tell Europe to stop Putin, help the US stop Putin? Do you think Putin would have been impressed when Harris ended up blathering like this? And this is my second piece of video evidence, this time of the West's weakness, showing an American vice president who seems to have her mind blown. I mean, she's pop-eyed at the idea that Putin's actually threatening war?
I mean, listen, guys, we're talking about the potential for war in Europe. I mean, let's really take a moment to understand the significance of what we're talking about. It's been over 70 years. And through those 70 years, as I mentioned yesterday, there has been peace and security. We are talking about the real possibility of war in Europe. So our position is for us very clear, which is as a leader, which we have been, bringing together the allies, working together around our collective and unified position, that we would all, not just prefer, we desire, we believe, it is in the best interest of all that there is a diplomatic end.
Of course we're talking about war, you lightweight, and blather, 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 blather. It's not just Harris, of course. It's not just the US, it's all talk and little action in defending Ukraine. I mean, you take Germany, you know, Europe's biggest power, its biggest economy. And it said, oh, yes, you know, we'll stand with Ukraine too. You know, we're going to send it military equipment to defend itself from China. But what did its defense minister actually end up sending Ukraine as it faces being wiped off the map? It sent Ukraine 5,000 helmets. 5,000 helmets, I kid you not. I guess now, you know, Ukrainian soldiers could put on the helmet and headbutt the Russian soldiers there or something, I don't know. The whole thing's a big con. And you know why Germany will barely lift a finger? It's because Russia's got it by the throat. Germany has gone so crazy green that it's scrapped its nuclear power stations, it's scrapping its coal-fired power stations, and now it's left so desperately short of energy that it actually needs huge supplies of Russian gas coming down the pipe to keep German homes warm in winter. It's not going to do anything. So yes, all these fine words in the United Nations Security Council today too, damning what Russia is doing.
He has since announced that he will place Russian troops in these regions. He calls them peacekeepers. This is nonsense. We know what they really are. In doing so, he has put before the world a choice. We must meet the moment and we must not look away. History tells us that looking the other way in the face of such hostility will be a far more costly path.
All absolutely true. But what is the US and what is Europe actually going to do about this? If this is exactly like that US ambassador was suggesting, you know, this is like stopping Hitler before World War II, what are they actually going to do about it? What? Because right now, there was actually more fight in one Ukrainian television studio last Friday than there is in all of Europe's armies combined. You know, a journalist smacked a pro-Russian politician in the mouth and put him in a headlock for defending Vladimir Putin. It's no wonder the Ukrainian ambassador to the Security Council exploded with frustration today.
The United Nations is sick. That's a matter of fact. It's been hit by the virus spread by the Kremlin. Will it succumb to this virus?
But even asking the United Nations Security Council in this emergency session today to stand up for Ukraine, what a sick joke. Guess who's the president of that UN Security Council? It's Russia. Guess who also has a veto vote on that council? Russia's ally, China. If you think the UN's going to save Ukraine, you are out of your mind, because the bad guys now rule.